Hey everyone, what's up? Now today we're going to be comparing the difference between older phones and newer phones in terms of their longevity. So for example, if you take an older phone such as the Galaxy S3 released in 2012 or the iPhone 6, let's say, released in 2015. Now these phones and phones in between them, and I'd say anything up to about 2015 to 2017, they would usually last you for, let's say, 2 or 3 years maximum. And that is especially the case for Samsungs and other Android phones. Now on the other hand, if we look at the iPhones, an iPhone 5S, some people are still using them today, but at quite a big pain realistically, because they do just end up really slow. Whereas Samsung, probably aren't going to see many Samsung Galaxy S3 users nowadays, or even S5 users. Now that is actually because Apple guarantees about 4 years of updates with each of their phones. Now with most Samsung phones over those few years, you'd be lucky to get 2, maybe 3 years of updates, sometimes even only 1 on their more budget phones. That is probably one of the worst cases you'd get with Android phones. But then you have a middle ground in between the iPhone and the most Android phones, which would be Google, where they've produced their old Nexus line of phones and even the newer Google Pixels. Now for example, if you take the Google Pixel 1, just called Google Pixel back in the day, that was released in 2016, and that phone, that Google Pixel, although it was actually only guaranteed 2 years of updates like most other Android phones, they ended up getting updated all the way from 2016 to 2019, and so that was at the end of 2019, so it's nearly 4 years of updates, so you're still not quite hitting what Apple does give their customers, and so you've got that in between. But now phones are more and more lasting longer. Now if we take all of those 3 examples and we put them together, we can understand that even at the top end of things, with the iPhone being able to last up to 4 years with updates, sometimes longer, they still get really slow. Like using a 5S today is going to be really hard, even a 6, and some people will be struggling to use a 6S. And then on the Android side of things, let's talk about Samsungs for example. You're not really going to see anyone using even an S7 nowadays, which was released in 2016, or even an S8 from 2017. Now personally, I'm using a Google Pixel 2 XL, which was released in 2017, which I feel is kind of the tipping point for phones that are really starting to last a lot longer compared to older phones. Now Pixel 2 XL is from 2017, and that phone 3 years later, I would say it's still very usable, and probably for another 2 years, 1.5 years, is pretty usable. But I still feel like it's getting a bit slow, and obviously it would be with that amount of years of use. But then once we step up to 2018, 2019, and especially phones being released this year, the amount of power that these phones have is so much more than phones that we had back in the day. Because now when we're especially looking at 2020, like I said, we have phones with 12 gigabytes of RAM, some probably next year with 16 gigabytes of RAM when we look at OnePlus for example. And then we also have iPhones such as the iPhone 11 Pro that's just released, and even just the regular iPhone 11, which have processors that are faster than some of their 13-inch laptops, which is kind of just crazy, and that would have never been the case, especially back in 2017 and any time before that really. So with this being the case, it means that if we really do have phones that are fast as laptops, now people would normally be keeping their laptops for up to 10 years, even longer sometimes, and with phones, because of companies releasing realistically a new one every year and wanting you preferably to upgrade either yearly and every 2 years at the latest, my question is, how are we going to keep this going really? Because with phones getting so good, it's just going to become stupid to need to upgrade, unless obviously they will get slower because there are always new demands software wise, or new programs, or especially things such as augmented reality, which is really coming in, which do require a lot more power, and therefore upgrades will still be necessary. I'm just not sure that it's going to be as often anymore, and it's going to be hard for companies to really incentivize you to upgrade, because if we do have phones next year, let's say in 2021, with let's say a OnePlus phone with 16 gigabytes of RAM, a processor that is exceptionally fast, and you could do very fast 4K editing on it, why is it we would need to upgrade, other than more camera performance, which is already getting to a peak? It seems that mobile technology is exponentially getting better, And the question is, what's going to happen throughout this next decade? Now, how are phone manufacturers going to incentivize you to upgrade, especially with this going on? We have already seen things, kind of quirky features from LG, for example, doing hand gestures over their phone, and different companies trying to incentivize you to get their phone, because phones are also just looking similar in general, although that is slightly off the point. Another question I would have here is, are people, just the general public, going to start more so realizing that they just have no necessity to upgrade, and they're just going to keep their phones for even longer, and therefore it's going to be harder for a lot of these companies, especially the smaller ones unlike Apple, to really make profit? And then at the top end of this, I'd say what is going to have to happen in the end is we're going to have to move away from the traditional phone form factor. So we've already seen folding phones, phones that slide out, which are all very crazy and innovative, and I feel like that is where we're going to have to go in the end to really change up the space. And the one way, if we do stick with what we're going with right now, if things do stay pretty similar, the only way that manufacturers can force you to upgrade is, as we were saying at the beginning, is with software updates. And so they can just cut your phone off after 2, 3, 4 years of updates. And in the end, what are you going to do? Like, unless you don't have an iPhone, and then you might have the possibility of rooting and updating it yourself, but the majority of the public isn't going to do that. And so it's still going to be a bit of a get your phone, chuck it away, get a new one type of market, which is sad, and hopefully that will change. And so there we are. That's just my 2 cents, my thoughts on everything that's going on right now in the mobile space in terms of longevity of phones, and why now we can go much longer without upgrading our phones, which is great for everyone, but maybe not so great for the companies out there. Now, thank you for watching. Now, if you did like this video, just scroll down, click that subscribe button, and like the video, and I'd very much appreciate that. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.